My name is Joyce Donaldson, and I'm President and CEO of the Carpinteria Valley Chamber of Commerce. We are very proud this evening to be co-hosting this event with the Carpinteria Women's Club, and Mary Beth Carty is one of our committee members. So thank you, Mary Beth, and thank you, Carpinteria Women's Club. Together, we are excited to be able to offer opportunities for you to learn about the candidates who will shape the Carpinteria future. We pride ourselves on providing a direct line to our civic and community leaders and act as a catalyst to address business issues and concerns with our local elected officials. The Chamber hosts legislative breakfast, educational forums, meet and greets, State of the Community Economic Forecast candidate forums such as this, and ribbon-cutting festivities, all which provide direct access to our local, state, regional, and national leaders. We want to thank the candidates for sharing their views on a variety of local issues. It's not easy being up here, so I want to thank Mr. Carty, Mr. Carty, Mr. Clark, Mr. Lee, Mr. Ringling, and Bradley Stein for being here. The way we got here this evening is we surveyed our chamber members and our women's club members, and we kind of put it out there on social media to send us your questions that you had for our candidates tonight. So our committee members took those questions, and we received a wide variety of questions and a really great amount. We were really excited about how many questions came in. And we took the top 5 of the frequently asked questions and posed the questions that we're going to be asking this evening around those questions. Unfortunately, time will not permit a question and answer period afterwards, but we have invited our candidates to meet and greet you in the lobby afterwards, so you're more than welcome to address them one-on-one. This forum also will be filmed, and it'll be available on a variety of different social media outlets, including the Chamber's Facebook page, Larry Nimmer's Facebook page. It'll be sent out via email to all of our chamber members, and we'll also be looking at getting it on some other public access stations for you to view, or to for you to have your relatives, friends, and families to be able to view at a later date. So, I want to thank our chamber board member and committee member, Monica Solorzano. Please stand, Monica. Monica's going to be timing for us tonight, so we hope to run a really tight program. Thank you, Monica. A really tight program so that we can get you out of here on time. And I'm sure that's 2 hours is more than enough for the candidates as well. So Monica will be giving them a 1-minute warning if indeed their time is nearing to be up. At this point, I would love to welcome Regina Ruiz, and she will be our moderator tonight. So give her a big round of applause. I'll tell you a little bit about Regina. Regina is amazing. She's a seasoned broadcast journalist who has anchored and reported to television stations across the country for more than a decade. You do not look that old. Including upstate New York, New Mexico, Las Vegas, and our hometown station, KEYT. And most recently, she was a reporter for the NBC in San Diego. She earned her master's degree in broadcast journalism from the highly acclaimed SI Newhouse School of Public Communications in Syracuse, New York. And she is a journalism instructor at Santa Barbara City College, the founder and president of her own media company, and is an active member of our Carpinteria community, serving as secretary of Aliso Parents Organization, and her children also attend Aliso. And she participates in the Carpinteria Little League and the Carpinteria Boys and Girls Club, and is currently also the Director of Communications at the Women's Economic Ventures. So let's give a big round of applause to Regina.
Thank you so much, Joyce. We have to do a little dance to switch over here. Good evening and welcome, residents and candidates. Thank you so much for joining us for this very important evening. Before we get started here, I want to go over the rules for this forum. To begin, candidates will have 3 minutes to give introduction statements. From there, candidates will have 2 minutes, 3 minutes max to answer each of the questions. Now, we are going to have 5 questions. We're going to do them round robin style. And we will begin by asking the first question in alphabetical order. To conclude, each candidate will have 2 minutes for a final closing question. All candidates are reminded to remain conscientious of the time restrictions, which will be right here up front, and be courteous to the moderator, me, and your opponents. To begin, Mr. Carty,
How long did you say we have the opening statement?
your opening statements will be 3 minutes. You may begin your opening statement.
All right, thank you to the Carpinteria Valley Chamber of Commerce, the Carpinteria Women's Club, the Alcazar Theater for hosting tonight's candidate forum, and I appreciate everyone's attendance. I am so proud and honored to be a citizen of Carpinteria for the past 60 years. Living in a small town has taught me countless lessons and has given me a sense of security and well-being that I believe everyone has a right to. I was raised by two incredible parents that emphasized the importance of community service, the respect of all humanity, and the responsibility to serve when there is a need. My father was superintendent of the Carpinteria Unified School District for nearly 30 years. He witnessed stories of poverty, discrimination, and horrific living situations. The images still haunt me. I was called to action at a very young age. As a child, my father recruited me and my siblings to help fix up truckloads of old bikes and anonymously giving them to children throughout our community who didn't have transportation to school. There are so many of these types of stories and experiences, and each one has shaped me into the person I am. I have served on the Carpinteria City Council for 12 years, 2 terms as mayor, 2 terms as vice mayor. I've enjoyed my appointments to the Beach Erosion for Clean Oceans and Nourishment Board, the Santa Barbara County City Affordable Housing Task Force, Public Facility Site Acquisition Development Committee, South Coast Task Force on Youth Safety, City Council School Board Committee, City Council Carpinteria Valley Chamber of Commerce Committee, among others. Prior to my seat as a councilman, I have served on the Architecture Review Board for 12 years and was involved with the Downtown Beautification Reconstruction Project. I volunteered with construction of our wonderful host building at the Seal Fountain. I am currently volunteering my help at the Art Center with their construction project. I constructed the stage at the Alcazar Theater. I recently retired from the California Avocado Festival Board after volunteering for 30 years. As a councilman, I understand the importance of working with people that don't share the same viewpoints and will strive to keep an open mind. I stand for responsibility, sustainable programs, and public safety measures. I have always been available to listen to the concerns of the community, especially our youth and seniors, and will continue to do so as they are a vital part of this community and our future. If I'm reelected, I will continue to do my research, listen to my constituents, and come to meetings prepared to make decisions in the best interests of Carpinteria. Carpinteria's future looks bright, and I'm excited to be a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carty. Mr. Clark, your opening remarks.
Thank you, and thanks to the Chamber of Commerce and the Women's Club for putting on this forum. It's really great to have somebody that's actually doing this. My name is Al Clark, and I grew up in Santa Barbara. I went to San Marcos High School, graduated there. I attended UCSB, and got a graduate degree in San Diego, California State University of San Diego. I was still am, industrial safety engineer, and I worked for private industry, the city of San Diego, and I did research for the government. Also worked for myself as an industrial safety engineer, and I have a small antique business. I lived in Carpinteria for 32 years, and in the same house with my wife, Kathleen Lord, and we raised 3 children, went to Carpinteria schools, and now I have 2 grandchildren, Jeremy and Adam, that go to Carpinteria schools. I became interested in politics in Carpinteria. I grew up in Santa Barbara, and things would be going on that I didn't really agree with, even as a little child. But I just thought that, well, I don't have any voice in this, and it's impossible to speak your mind. I didn't really understand the system, and I thought, well, it's sort of a done deal. When I moved to San Diego, it was even a bigger city, and I thought there was no opportunity to have any input or make any difference in what was going on. When I got to Carpinteria, I not only found a bunch of citizens that were involved and active, but also a small enough town where your voice really did matter, and you and a group of citizens could actually change things. So that's how I got interested in politics. Similar to what Gregg said, on the city council, I try to make a decision that takes into account the highest public good and the broadest public good. I get all the facts, listen to the experts, and listen to the public before making any decision. Sometimes I will come to a meeting and I'm based on my research, and I'm kind of leaning a certain way that this is probably how this should go. But the public a lot of times brings facts to me that I hadn't gotten before, and they also give me their opinions that I take into considerations. A lot of times I've actually had my opinion changed based on the facts given to me, the public. So I thank the public for giving me the opportunity to serve. I want to continue to serve to get some things done, including keeping Carpinteria, the small, vibrant town that we all know and love. Thank you.
Mr. Clark, thank you. Mr. Lee, your opening remarks, please.
Hi. I want to thank everybody for being here today. I see a lot of friends, family, neighbors, and customers. Joyce, Mary Beth, Virginia, thank you for hosting this. And to Gregg, Clark, Dar, and Brad, thank you for being up here with me. It's an honor to be sitting with you. And today is a special day. Today is my daughter's birthday. She turns 9. And I want to tell her that I love you and I'm proud of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Mr. Ringling, your opening remarks.
Hi again, my name is Darwin Ringling. Thank you for having me here, I appreciate it. I want to say, first I just want to say I saw his daughter here and I think she's a future council member, don't you think? So we'll look forward to that day. Anyways, I wanted to thank Joyce and the Chamber of Commerce for inviting us, and also the Carpinteria Women's Club for inviting us also. And I really want to thank all of you for coming here. This is a great, unique town, and that people will show up on a Thursday night to come listen to us guys talk about our city. You are people who actually care about the city and care deeply. So I thank you for coming, and the people who are going to be watching online also. I thank you guys for watching and caring enough about our city. I want to serve this city. I love this city. My wife Darla, wave your hand. Okay. Thank you. My wife and I, Darla and I, love living in this town. We love this city, and I want to serve it. I've always wanted to get involved. I've always get involved wherever I go and whatever I've done. I've served in nonprofits. I've served on boards. I've served in nonprofits, and I've served in businesses and on boards and all. So I have a lot of experience with working with budgets that are larger than this one, some that are the similar size, stuff like that. And I just want to bring in that expertise so that I can help this city be all that it can be. And it is a great city, and we need to protect it. There's a lot of issues that are going on, and there's a lot of things that are pushing this city that could make it turn into something that we don't want, and we need to protect that. So I want to be a part of that. I am a certified accountant, and I think that would be valuable on the city council. So anyways, thank you again for coming. I appreciate that. Again, my name is Darwin Ringling.
Thank you so much. Mr. Stein, your opening remarks, please.
Thank you. And again, I'll follow suit. Thank you all for being here and putting this on. And again, this doesn't surprise me at all. Carpinterians have always come out and taken an interest. That's why we're such a special town. That's what we've been doing for at least the last 28 years. to keep this town the way we like it, small, clean, safe, and appreciate all the work. I mean, we're on the city council, the three of us, and two guys are going to run for our seats. But honestly, what makes Carpinteria great is the volunteerism, the dedication to make sure, hey, we watch what happens here and we want to make sure it's done right no matter what goes on here. We've seen some really tough decisions made I have seen a lot of tough decisions made over the last 28 years. So I appreciate all of you coming out and listening to us. I've been married 39 years to Carla, my beautiful wife. I've got 3 great kids, Eric, Jeremy, and Kevin. They all born, raised here, gone through Carpinteria Public Schools, the best education money can buy, which is free because we're taxpayers and we pay for it. But all 3 of my sons not only were good athletes, they all got academic scholarships that our school system provided them. Eric went to the Naval Academy, played football for Navy, now flies jets. He's protecting our country. Jeremy went to Drake University, played football there. He's a chemical engineer working out of Ventura. Kevin is in his senior year at Southwestern University in Georgetown, Texas, just north of Austin. He's a business econ major, and he's getting ready to graduate, finding jobs in Texas. He likes Texas. He'd love to live here, but he likes Texas a lot. I've worked for the railroad, Southern Pacific, hired out 1977, 41 years. I've had a successful building business for 30 years, and I do my homework on the city council. I come with an open mind, no matter who brings the project or the process, and that's my track record over the last 28 years. As Al mentioned, we read the information we're given, but the night of the meeting and the vote, we've had our minds changed because of information that's been brought forth by the public. And to me, keeping Carpinteria the way it is has been my job for the last 28 years, and I'm proud of what our councils have done. I've been mayor 3 times, vice mayor 3 times, re-elected 7 times, and everybody here knows me as Brad. I'm not a council member, I'm not that Brad. Hey, what can we do to make CARP better? And proud of my record, and I stand by it. So I hope you re-elect me. I'd like to serve another 4 years of a community I love. There's nowhere else on earth I'd rather live. So thank you again for coming out. Thanks for all your volunteerism here in the community, and I'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stein. Moving on to our first question. This is a 2-part question regarding business vitality. How will you go about supporting small business in the tourist economy? And how will the proposed sales tax increase help and/or hurt our local businesses? Mr. Carty.
Thank you. Well, the city of Carpinteria is already doing quite a bit for businesses in the downtown. We have a downtown that our visitors love to come to. We have many great restaurants. Times have changed. People used to go to the mom and pop stores a lot more than they do now. People are buying things online. They don't have to pay sales tax quite a bit. I'm in favor of Measure X, and I can tell you the reasons why. Measure X, I'm looking at it as an investment in our community. Whoop. Okay. Our city does a good job of keeping our downtown clean. We have regular public works that are down there pretty much every day now, cleaning the street, cleaning the curbs, just cleaning everything up. And there was 3 questions, correct?
2-part question. The first regarding supporting small business in the tourist economy, and how will proposed sales tax increase help and/or hurt our local businesses?
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm kind of mixed up here. Well, in my lifetime, I remember when sales tax was 2% and a bottle of pop was a dime. Times have changed. Our current sales tax is 7.75, and Carpinteria only receives a small percent of that, just over 1.8 million. An increase of just over a penny on the dollar spent in our community could easily be over $2 million, and every penny would stay in Carpinteria. That's more than double our sales tax revenue right now. Yes, on Measure X will help maintain and improve essential programs and services, including disaster preparedness, maintaining our streets, sidewalks, and parks. It will help support our library, youth, and senior programs, finance projects to keep creek and ocean waters clean, and enable compliance with the American Disability Act and the important public health and safety work. It is clear it will also help local businesses. Over the past 4 years, the annual rate of growth in sales tax is approximately 1%. Gasoline, eating meals out, and beverage sales have led this growth. Our visitors' contributions will help to maintain and preserve our quality of life and the uniqueness of our community that we all cherish. No Measure X revenues is needed for public pensions. Measure X is a fair and effective way to keep our Carpinteria way of life. Businesses, they need to do some of their work themselves, keep their businesses clean.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Mr. Carty, now it's on to Mr. Clark. Thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you. The city has a long history of supporting local businesses. We first beautified the town back in the early 90s to make it a more attractive place for visitors and residents alike. I strongly support small local business for a number of reasons. One is that they provide the essential goods and services that we need. And most of the owners are local, and they are part of our community. They're our friends and neighbors, and really part of the fabric of this town. And lastly, more money is retained in the local economy with a local business as opposed to a chain store. There was a famous study out of Marquette University that found that for every dollar spent in a store, 47 cents was retained in the economy by a local store, whereas only 13 cents was retained in the local economy from a chain store. So, one of the things I've done is I championed the big box ordinance. That's ordinance number 632 of August 2008, where we banned big box stores. And we have reduced the fees on small businesses. We reduced the fees on all businesses. We recently put those fees back in, but I see we really do need to see if we can figure out how to extend that to small businesses, to keep the fees low and encourage small businesses from starting up. We have a very attractive, vibrant downtown. Just take a look at State Street and compare how we're doing. We're doing much better off. So I think that our local businesses have responded to the changing times. In terms of Measure X, I support Measure X. I think the question was, how will Measure X contribute or detract from businesses? I think that for one thing, you will see a whole lot of new money being injected to the local economy. I don't think that people are going to, I've heard of people say, oh, this is it, that's over the top. I'm driving to Santa Barbara to do all my shopping there. Well, to do that, you're going to save 1/4% in sales tax, and you're going to waste your time in gasoline driving there. So I don't know if there's really any downsides to local business. I know that Measure X or any sales tax do not apply to groceries and pharmaceuticals, so I think that helps people out a lot. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Mr. Lee.
As a small business owner, it's difficult to do business. It's hard. We work 16-hour days consistently. We can't afford to get sick. Recently, we have dealt with a lot of homelessness. We have dealt with the fire, the floods. It's been difficult, and we're still feeling from that. For me, it's important to work with the chamber and to possibly rethink how we do First Fridays, to update it. It's been, can't remember the last time that they don't include our area in Casillas Pass Road. So for me, that would be important to include that area for us, to have music, to have space for us. As for Measure X, I'm in favor of it because it will be good for our city. If it's not passed, you'll see more cuts to the budget. You might see more homelessness, less law enforcement, and worse streets. So, again, I'm in favor, and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Mr. Ringling.
Again, I want to thank you all for coming. Business vitality and supporting our local businesses, I agree, is very important. We need to support our local businesses for lots of reasons. One, because when we support our local businesses, that increases the sales tax that is actually paid. And also, when you support your local business, then they have the opportunity to increase the breadth of what they offer to you and stuff like that. So we need to support the local businesses, and we need to all do that. It also decreases traffic between here and Santa Barbara. The small businesses are hurting, and it's hard on them. And I talked to a number of them, and a number of them are saying that they have marginal profits as the way it is. And if we increase the sales tax, that'll just actually hurt them. And so I am not in favor of increasing the sales tax. It's 9%. If it had been something in the 8%, I would probably feel differently about that, but I think 9% is too high. I think that we don't need to have that sales tax that high. I think that I have looked at the budget, and I think that we can serve, the budget is built without the sales tax in it, and it covers everything that we need to have at this time. I do agree with Al Clark, very much so. He articulated that very well, that when you spend locally, there's a circular event to the dollars. They stay in the community and they get spent, and it actually circulates and increases what goes into to the city and into the people who are working there, and then those people buy also. So anyways, I encourage all of us to support our local businesses, and I encourage us not to vote for Measure X. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Stein.
Thank you. As a member of the Budget Subcommittee, along with Mr. Clark, we've been working on this budget on the committee for the last 8 years. We've cut and cut and cut. And we are fortunate that we started a reserve account 28 years ago. So when the times were good, we never increased fees, never increased taxes. Any kind of surplus, we socked away for a rainy day. We tried to run the city like you would run your household. If you can't afford it, you don't buy it. You put money away until you can, or you get matching funds. We have, as Mr. Ringling knows, if you looked at the budget, that $378,000 that our general fund is subsidizing. That's the shortfall. We're looking at assessment districts that go into the streets. We have higher police costs. We have parks where they haven't been touched. The maintenance is, we're just maintaining things right now, and it's declining. We need to have an influx of money coming in so we can add more to the parks, redo the sprinkling systems, refix the backstops. I was driving through the neighborhood behind Ogan Road, which was put back in the 70s. I remember when they built it. Those streets are 50 years old, and they show it. Right now, we're drawing off our reserves $500,000 a year to just Band-Aid our streets. We need to be putting in, just to bring them to the 70% level, approximately $1.3 million a year. And that's our shortfall. Our reserves we're drawing down to fix the Band-Aids approach. Our budget is not covering it. The sales tax, the other thing that wasn't mentioned here, there are 50 or 60 cities with higher sales tax than us in California. There are some with less. Nobody's going to drive to Santa Barbara to save a dime. That's just kind of bad information put out there. The other thing is, half of the sales tax is going to be paid for by people that come and visit. And I think that's really important. Again, it's matching funds. My sons never got an allowance. They had to work for their money. If they wanted a surfboard or a wetsuit, I told them, I'll tell you what, I've got this work to do. I'll pay half, you pay half. And they earned what they had. We have a very balanced budget. We've cut and cut. We have essential services. We can't cut them anymore. We've got a phenomenal staff that does everything they can to keep it down and low. And even our public works guys are now starting to fix street cracks because we can't afford to contract that out anymore. There's lots that go on that most people don't realize, that our council, in a unanimous vote, decided to put this on the ballot. And we are 5 diverse people up there, and we've checked everything we could to try and bring in more revenue. And it's time. So I support Measure X. Thank you very much.
One down, 4 to go. Great job. We do want to mention that the candidates were not given the questions prior. They were not able to rehearse or research any of the answers. They are hearing the questions for the first time this evening. Moving on to question number 2, regarding the proposed hotel at the train station. How will the potential revenue stream offset the impact to Carpinteria residents? Mr. Clark, you may answer first.
Yeah, would you?
Okay, I have the freedom to speak to that. He unfortunately does not. Because he is a city council member, and I want to respect him, and I think that Roy does also, so I think we should not speak to that because he is not allowed to, and I would be able to, and it would be unfair to him. Because it is a current issue in the city, and therefore he is forbidden, along with his colleagues.
I'll speak to it.
Yeah, no, okay. No, I would say, we received a ruling from the city attorney today about this issue. So we didn't know it was going to be one of the questions.
If I may, all I would say is that, again, like we said in our openings, every project has its own merits, good and bad. And we can't make a decision on something like that until we receive all the information and have all the public hearings and listen to what the public has to say before we make a decision. So Mr. Ringling's right. We're not going to sit up here and say yes or no because you can't. So until we get all the information, have the public hearings, we are kind of handicapped on that. So, sorry.
We will move on to question number 2 if nobody wants to answer, but we do have an opportunity for each of you to speak for up to 3 minutes on this topic. So if you would like the opportunity, we will start with Mr. Clark, move to Mr. Lee, and still stay in alphabetical order. If you pass your opportunity, that is okay, but we would like to give everybody the opportunity to speak to this for up to 3 minutes if you would like.
Well, I think I would just say that, that the process of this is that this is just a concept. It's not a development application, and yet we've been given this warning from the city attorney. We have had a number of public hearings on this concept, and a number of members of the public have spoken on this and written letters to the editors. Probably more public interest in this topic than anything except for perhaps the Bluffs and Paradon. A lot of things that people have said in our public hearings are that the city should not be the project would put the city into the hotel business as owner of the land, and the city should not be put itself in a position of having a conflict of interest, especially when regulating other private hotel operations. And people have said that that the hotel really doesn't fit in. It's out of character with the neighborhood, and it's just not Carpinteria. Of course, we haven't seen what the design is going to be, but this is just what people are guessing from the information that they've had before. And additionally, we've had people say that this hotel might appropriate the public good for private benefit and for the use of just a few. And when they speak these things, they say things like scarce water resources, really precious parking that we have in the beach area, and mountain views, which are protected by the general plan. And that's about all I can remember that from the public hearings of what the people have said against it. There are people that have spoken for it, and they are in favor of the revenue that would come from the hotel. And it's premature to talk about how much revenue would really come from that project. People have said that they think the project would rejuvenate downtown, and you can be the judge whether downtown needs rejuvenation or not. So that's why I'll use my time saying it.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Mr. Lee?
I'll respect the other candidates and not talk about this issue. So, yeah, you're next.
I'm going to stand with Mr. Lee. We were given an email shortly before this meeting started from the city attorney not to speak about it, although Mr. Lee and I have full freedom to speak about it, but out of respect for the other candidates, the incumbents, I am going to decline. But I do have a strong opinion, but you can ask me later. Bye.
I'd like to hear your opinion. Well, as I mentioned before, that's one of the handicaps that we have up here as seated council members. You cannot predetermine what you're going to look at for a project. And so, like I stated before, everything will come to the council from conceptual all the way through the whole process, and it'll be vetted out. And whether it passes muster with the community or not, we won't know until that final vote. So, but to sit up here and say yes or no, we cannot do that. Like Councilmember Clark, I've heard pros and cons from the community, so we'll see where it goes. Thank you.
Mr. Carty?
All right. This isn't the only hotel proposal Carpinteria has. We actually have an application for a 100-room hotel on Via Real. The hotel at the train station, it has pros and it has cons, and I encourage you, the community, to do your homework and figure out what's in it for Carpinteria. And what do we want our downtown to look like in 10 years and 20 years and after we're gone for our kids? What's going to happen with the Austin block? Do we want a hotel in our downtown? We used to have the Pine Haven. We used to have the Lemon Tree Motel, the Eugenia, motor inns all over Carpinteria in our downtown. Is in our core downtown a place for a small hotel where you can ride the train? You don't need a car? Does it ruin the way our city looks? So do your homework, and if the community's against it, I'm against it. I saw a study done by UCSB on housing and hotels. We could build 5,000 houses right now in the Carpinteria Valley, go rampant, and there would still be a need for houses. It was the same thing with hotels. We could build 10 hotels, there would be a need for another one. So we need to look to the future, what we want our downtown to look like. Do we want it or not? That's up to you.
Thank you, Mr. Carty. Moving on to question number 3. Carpinteria has a draft ordinance to address the cannabis industry. Of the following individual segments, which provide the most benefits to the city and why? Cultivation, testing, manufacturing, distribution, including transportation, and retail. Mr. Lee, you will begin.
There's a lot of misinformation about what the cannabis industry is doing in our valley. And education is key into what should be happening to the community. We should all know the facts and not hearsays or what your neighbor said, or just, we need facts. Testing is important. That's the first step towards having cannabis industry in the community. There's a moratorium right now being revised to have that in our city, in the business part. So I think that's the first steps towards having cannabis industry in our valley and benefit from that. We have to work with them. We have to listen. We have to have a positive relationship. We have to take that and make it a positive for us, and to listen and to respect each other. Because they're here, they have to feed their families. I understand that. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Mr. Ringling.
Excuse me. Thank you for asking the question. I am not a fan of cannabis or marijuana. I'll just be straight up on that. However, it is law, and therefore we have to deal with it. Cultivation is the first question that she asked about. Actually all of the cannabis is grown outside of their city. And I think that a lot of people, you guys probably know it, but a lot of people don't know that. There is some land in town that is agricultural that could actually be grown on that, but mostly what they're looking for is people with existing greenhouses when they're coming in. And I have friends who are selling their greenhouse because it's very profitable to do so. Testing, manufacturing, distribution are three categories that I'm more open to. That is an opportunity that has less risk and has the opportunity for bringing revenue into the city. As a side note, I think that we should try and work with the county to find a way to tax the growers in our area. And the reason for that is they are using our roads, they are they're providing crime. Unfortunately, there's crime that has come with cannabis. A place near our home has been robbed, or at least attempted to be robbed a couple times, and that brings crime. So we need, in our budget for safety in Carpinteria is 38% of our budget. So I think we need to find a way to work with the city to find a way for the cannabis growers to help pay for that. So again, testing, manufacturing, distribution, that's not necessarily, that is a way to actually increase revenues. Retail, no. I don't, I heard Dave Derflinger speak to that quite eloquently. He said that the city of Santa Barbara has experimented and done a couple of retail outlets, and it has not gone well for them. It drew a certain type of crowd, a certain type of person, and there was problems around those retail. So I am against retail in the city of Carpinteria. And I have a 1-minute warning, and I'm done.
Thank you, Mr. Ringling. Mr. Stein.
Hi. Yeah, again, Al Clark and I are on the cannabis subcommittee. Councilmember Cheech, Councilmember Chong down there. We've been dealing with this with law enforcement on the subcommittee meeting, and we came to the full council with our findings. Same thing, no brick and mortar stores in Carpinteria. It's not worth it. I don't support it. We did look at the possibility of testing out in the industrial park, but that's still under investigation as well, because you use a lot of volatile chemicals when you do the testing and the processing. One of the ideas that we've had is, instead of having people driving in and out of the city, we franchise a delivery service, one only, that will come and go, because there are folks that need marijuana medically. It helps them, and I do not want to deny that. State law, everybody in this community can grow 6 plants on their property. It's legal. as far as working with the county and taxes, that's one of the boondoggles that we are dealing with. Because we see, again, Councilmember Clark and I were on the subcommittee that worked negotiating with the sheriff's contract. We saw the same justification. More crime in the county, more coming and going through our city. We need to have money to help fund sheriffs that are dealing with that. Unfortunately, you're at the mercy of the Board of Supervisors, which they've been pretty stingy lately. Those who know about our library know that as well. That's another reason for the previous question, Measure X, to help us with our library, because the more the Friends of the Library raise to help subsidize our library, the more the Santa Barbara County cuts and Santa Barbara City cuts. So we need revenues from that source. But back to the marijuana, I'm against brick and mortar. I would see a franchise, one delivery service only that operates within the city limits. We're at the mercy of the county and the state to, which good luck, we don't see much of that. Tax revenue back to ours, they seem to run short when we ask. And that's it. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stein. Mr. Carty.
Councilman Stein said that well. Cannabis is now legal to grow and consume in the city of Carpinteria. Cannabis commercially grown in the Carpinteria Valley is entirely in the Santa Barbara County. New regulations will soon go into effect as approved by the California Coastal Commission. Our city has been playing an important role in letting their concerns be heard. I jotted all this down, it's hard for me to read. Many growers in the Carpinteria Valley are the most compliant in the whole state. The ones that care about their neighbors are part of their community. I'm talking about the Van Wingerdens and the Brands. And they're the ones that welcome the regulations that protect our quality of life here in Carpinteria. As far as the city of Carpinteria, I feel we should look at cannabis-related applications that meet our current regulations that are in place as they are applied for, especially when it comes to medicinal purposes. I don't want to get in any way of not letting the patients that need their medical attention get it. And the future of the cannabis industry is probably going to go big business. So one big question is, what are we going to do with the greenhouses after the cannabis is no longer there? That's a big future concern of mine. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carty. Mr. Clark.
Thank you. You know, this is still an issue that's being studied by the city. Currently, we have a moratorium on doing anything with pot while we study this issue. I understand that a draft ordinance is going through the Planning Commission process, and I'm not familiar with that ordinance at all. But when we were crafting this mission to go look at all these different things, as Brad mentioned, you know, we were a little bit skeptical. You know, the county is doing cultivation, and there have already been a lot of concerns, security concerns, as mentioned by Mr. Ringling, in that regard. And we don't, you know, it's how do we plan for that eventuality in the city? So, you know, there's a lot of questions that still need to be answered. You know, we look at it and a little testing lab sounds good, but what are the security protections that will need, and how would that work? And you know, I understand that cannabis is some people feel you know, they get relief from pain and other, you know, it's good for medicinal purposes, and so, you know, as Mr. Stein mentioned, we have looked at the potential of doing a delivery service, and that might be a good thing to do. But again, we need to worry about these security concerns. What do we do? As long as everything is in place, these things might be realistic. But to me, this is a big concern that we have, especially given the county experience so far. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Moving on to question number 4. This question is regarding transportation and safety. What plans do you have to improve traffic safety on Carpinteria Avenue, and in particular, the school crossings?
Yeah, thank you for asking about traffic safety. Traffic safety is very important. That is one of the, and safety in general is one of the most important things to me for this city. We need to all be safe. We need to feel safe. We need to be able to ride our bikes. Our children need to be able to ride our bikes. We all need to be a part of that. Certainly, it's great that we have the police officers driving around. Someone suggested that we need to cut money from the police officers' budget by not having them on site between 2 and 4. Well, that's when the children are getting out of school, so you can't do that. They need to be on site in Carpinteria 24/7. So we need to have that safety. I think a part of it is also us. We all need to drive safe. We need to drive heads up and be careful for that. In regards to Carpinteria Avenue, again, we need to have those police officers continue to monitor it, because when the police officers are there, we all drive just a little bit better. Whether it's good or bad, that's what we do. And when the children are on their way to school, we do have that. We have the crossing guards, and we all need to. I think part of it is, we can't just rely on the police to take care of it. We need to drive safe ourselves. In regards to, I want to add to that, we have a lot of traffic between here and Santa Barbara. And I think we need to continue to shop locally so we decrease that traffic between here and Santa Barbara, so there's less of that, and it also decreases the emissions that we have, and also helps with sea level rise and the climate change, and we talk a lot about that. So I hope that we all work towards that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ringling. Mr. Stein.
Can you read the question again?
Yes. What plans do you have on how to improve traffic safety around Carpinteria Avenue, and in particular, the nearby school crossings?
Thank you. Well, it's interesting. The way I was raised, not only to drive, but walk, and especially in my work at the railroad, you look both ways. Even if you're walking through a railroad yard and the tracks are empty, that's when accidents happen, because you are not being defensive. One of the things I think that we've gotten away from, we have this dependency on lit crosswalks or brighter crosswalks, and not only children, which need to be educated to be defensive, that's not a protective zone. And I've watched cars, people just step right off the curb because they're in a crosswalk, and it's a false sense of security. I raised my sons to always look both ways. When you're driving at an intersection, you still look both ways. When you come to a crosswalk, you have to be cognizant of the fact that drivers nowadays are either texting, hopefully not, or talking, or just not paying attention, too many things on their mind, and they blow right through lit crosswalks, painted crosswalks. I've seen them even with police officers parked there, go right by. So I think education should be really stressed at the school level, at home, to be defensive. Don't just trust the fact that you're in a crosswalk. Make sure that it's safe to cross. That being said, we had another incident here at Palm Avenue. It's the second one. Somebody not paying attention. I think there would be more safety in the prime school hours if at these major crosswalks we actually use security guards. And we have great, some senior citizens might be able to, retired folks that want to come out and work 2 or 4 hours a day, morning and afternoon. Because another set of eyes, And you tend to see the crossing guard. Michael at Catalino School, everybody knows Michael. And I'll tell you, it's more protective having him there, helping those kids across, or down at Aliso, the same thing. Now, that's a signalized intersection. They have a crossing guard because why? People aren't paying attention. They shoot around the corner. So I think crossing guards are actually a better idea than keep adding lit crosswalks. So, and education. We've got to start teaching that again with our kids and school. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stein. Mr. Carty.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank Beth Cox. She has gone on social media and asked a lot of questions to the city and has given that information to everybody you can think of, from the superintendent to the principals to the teachers to all the schools to all the council members. It is tragic that you know, the thought of a child being hit by a car, and public safety is at the top of my list as far as concerns in the city. There's some immediate things we can do as far as pedestrian safety in this community bicycles also, and that would be traffic enforcement. And you're going to see our city is already in the process of stepping up enforcement. You're going to see motorcycle patrols sitting on some of the side streets off of Carpinteria Avenue. You're going to see police cars. There's even talk about parking police cars with nobody in them. So the superintendent of schools is working with our city manager on educating the children. So traffic enforcement would be the first thing. Crossing guards, you're going to see a crossing guard soon at Palm and Carpinteria Avenue. That's going to happen. The city's already in the process of arranging that and working with the schools. And then education is huge, not just educating the kids and it's the drivers, and everybody needs to slow down a little bit. One of the saddest things to happen to Carpinteria is the amount of traffic we have here. To me, that's my biggest disappointment about our city. And then the next one would be a bigger one, which would be the traffic engineering. That's when the street is studied and finds out what's wrong with each intersection. Is it safe? Is it not safe? And the city is going through that process. It's actually starting right now. So it's sad that it takes an incident to make things happen, and we don't want anything worse to happen. So like I say, this is at the top of my list, and I know it's at the top of the current council's list. And public safety is we don't have any choice. That top of the list. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carty. Mr. Clark.
Thank you. Yeah, we've Carp's had a rash of car-on-kid collisions recently. It's a shocking rash, and it's coincidentally a lot of those have happened at rush hour time. And one thing we noticed that the commuters from south going to jobs in Santa Barbara, when the traffic is jammed up, the apps on their phones tell them to get off and get on Carpinteria Avenue. And so, you know, but they still want to get there quickly, and so, you know, they're going pretty fast, and they are tailgating. And so those are situations that can be bad. Also, when they close down Casitas Pass to get, so for Carpinterians to get on the freeway, they route traffic through neighborhoods, and these are neighborhoods where people should be going 25 and 30, and yet these people want to go 50, 55 miles an hour where there's kids walking to school. And somebody did mention, maybe it was Gregg, we did have an enforcement effort there. We got the CHP over there, and they wrote 60 tickets in a very short period of time, and so that's. But those are sort of temporary things, and I think we can get the CHP back periodically to write those tickets, and that helps. But you know, I am an industrial safety engineer, and there are things that can be done. The city of Santa Barbara is adopting a zero tolerance policy for pedestrian bicycle accidents, and there are engineering things that you can do. If we were going out and building a new road now, we could anticipate the hazards, and we could help pedestrians and bicyclists out so that we would not have accidents. The policy that Santa Barbara is developing is when we have to go back and tear up a road, what are the things we can do to make this road more appropriate for safety? But really, as an industrial safety engineer, I learned that once you take care of all the engineering things, accidents still happen. It's because of the behavioral issue that we're talking about. And for the drivers that are just coming through Carpinteria are not really part of this community, it's got to be enforcement. But I think that going forward after the construction project is over, yes, we do have to have more crossing guards when school gets out. You see the middle school kids when they get out of school, when they're crossing Palm and Carpinteria Avenue. I mean, they have a lot of pent-up energy, and they're just kind of bouncing off the walls, and that's just what kids do. And so drivers need to be aware of that. We need to make them aware of safety. So it's a problem, and we're tackling it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Mr. Lee.
We need 5 things: education, crossing guards, law enforcement, flashing lights, and working with the school district to make this happen. That's it. And we just need to focus on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to our final question this evening. In regards to homelessness, what concrete steps would you favor taking to address homelessness in Carpinteria? Mr. Stern, sorry, you may start.
Stern, Stone,
Stein,
Steen.
Mr. Stein.
I've been called it all.
It was
It's okay.
Stein and Start that got me.
That's okay.
Stein and Start.
Hey, I'm used to
Mr.
it.
Stein, you may start.
That's all right. Thank you. Hey, if we can't have fun and laugh a little bit,
Exactly, especially on the final question.
Yeah, and this is Carpinteria. Homelessness is it's a serious issue, and it's much bigger than Carpinteria. And again, this all started back in the 80s when a lot of institutions were closed down. There are some mentally handicapped folks out here that really are on the streets that shouldn't be. The city has worked with the county. We have different agencies. City Manager Dave Derflinger has been working with law enforcement to find housing for some of these folks. Unfortunately, we can provide a lot of services to them, and they'll be right back the next day because they prefer sleeping on the street. Now, this isn't a plug, but my wife and I were eating at Teddy's last night. She went back to Florida to take care of my 2 grandsons for a couple of weeks for my kids. And we sat there, and the Ventura bus pulled up, and 2 guys got off the bus with their bedrolls and their signs, handmade signs, and headed for, I'm assuming, the freeway to start panhandling. There are professional panhandlers, and what I tell folks over and over, please do not give anybody money, because the best way to get them into the services that are available is if you do not hand them cash. The more cash they get, they'll go buy beer, drugs, whatever, and they'll stay here. Now, there are some folks here that should be institutionalized. Unfortunately, the city is working with other agencies to do that, but you can't force them. Our law enforcement folks have got extensive files on everybody in town. And working hand in hand, we're trying to get them off the streets. But again, there are professionals. Once they hear Carpinteria is an easy target, they take the bus down from Santa Barbara or Goleta or up from Ventura and get off and panhandle. I've seen families park a brand new Suburban at Albertsons. Their kids ride off on their bikes, 3 kids, and the mom and dad go to the off-ramp with signs, please, we need cash. And people are giving them money. So that should not be done. So working with other agencies, we're doing that at the city level, but again, it's a process that's so much bigger than Carpinteria and the county and the state. We need federal and state funding to help put institutions back that helped homeless people live there that have mental problems. So, thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Stein. Mr. Carty.
Yeah. I was on the city's representative on Central Coast Collaboration on Homeless, and now it's called Common Ground, Santa Barbara County, and our representative is Al Clark, and our city manager is playing a big role in that Santa Barbara collaboration with Al Clark and dealing with a lot of issues. It's not an easy issue. Don't give them money. The thing to give them is a pair of socks. That they value socks. It's a big deal for them. Common Ground is making huge strides in helping the homeless. Volunteering is a great way to support to end homelessness. Volunteering for Common Ground, they're tracking homeless. Carpinteria has 13, I believe, right now, and they find out who they are, they get their names, what age, do they have medical insurance, and we've had a few successes here in Carpinteria in the last couple of years. I think 2 individuals, we've actually got them housed, and they're staying in it. There's several citizens in Carpinteria. If you walk the downtown, Dave Moore, Rudy Perez, and Rick Olmsted, you'll see them down there every week doing what they can to help the homeless. It's pretty much been a revolving cycle for most of the homeless in Carpinteria. You see them get help and they're back on the street. Get help, they're back on the street. So, like I say, Common Ground is making some huge strides, and I'm sure Councilman Clark will fill everybody in on what he's doing. And it's not an easy issue, and it's most of them. There's some substance abuse and some mental issues, and that's difficult to deal with. There are groups in California that are saying we should round them up and put them into almost like a prison and get them the help they need. But that doesn't seem very humane to me. Don't give up. Let's give them the help that all that we can. It would be easy for any of us or some of us to be in that situation. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Carty. On to Mr. Clark.
Thank you. Yeah, the organization is changing all the time. They actually have a new name. It's called Home for Good Collaborative. But homelessness is a very complicated issue. It's kind of one of the most difficult public policy problems that I've ever seen. A lot of people, there's different solutions that people recommend, and one we call housing first. So just get a person in a house, and then we can make everything work. And we've been trying to do that for people that will accept it in Carpinteria. A lot of people won't accept it, but this real stumbling block is, where's this going to be? Where are they going to be housed? And we have had a few success stories lately, but it looks like there's really some, there's light at the end of the tunnel. There are going to be some pretty substantial funding opportunities come forward that we may be able to shelter the homeless population in Carpinteria. And I really look forward to that. But again, as Gregg has mentioned, and others, that we do, it's a multi-pronged problem. We have people who, have mental illnesses, and it's hard to get them into housing. And with housing, The other thing you need, especially for mentally ill people and for substance abuse people, is you need services. And the services are in Santa Barbara, and so what does Carpinteria do? Even if we have a shelter or sheltering opportunities maybe in multiple locations, how do they get the services? How do we coordinate that? So that's something that we have to work on. And then there's, as I mentioned, there's substance abuse people, and a lot of these people do not want to go into a house. They actually prefer to live out on the street and out in the open. And I'm not sure how we tackle that, but and then again, there's people we provide them housing, but it's not where they want to be. They don't want to be on the outskirts of town. They want to be right downtown, and so they don't stay in the housing that's provided. So it's a multi-pronged problem. But I actually have the most hope for this situation than I have had for many years. And so I hope it all comes true that we are able to do some sheltering and get more people off the street. And it's a lot of these people, some of them are just down in their luck, and they will happily accept the housing situation. That's good. The other people, it's good for business, and it's good for the people themselves, and it's good for residents that we do take care of them in some fashion. And we are working on it, and there are successes on it. And actually, our local representative that's doing work in the ground has said that you should give money to homeless people because that will really help them out. So you be the judge.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Mr. Lee.
We have to remember, homelessness is not a problem, it's a person. And we have to treat them with respect and compassion. We have to help the ones that want help, that need help, that needs a break. Because any of us can be in the same situation. Most of us are just a few paychecks away from being homeless ourselves. And for the ones that want to take advantage of a community there needs to be enforcement, education about the community not to give, but instead give to the nonprofits that will help them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Mr. Ringling.
Well, homelessness is a serious issue, and one of the things I appreciate about this town of Carpinteria is that I do see that we actually do care about it. I've seen other cities where they don't want to care. I've read an article recently where they were trying to get a sales tax issue passed, and they were looking for what the hot points were in the city. And by taking homelessness off their list of things to put on the measure, it actually had a better chance of passing. But here in Carpinteria, we've left that on the list. So that shows that when we did the survey, people in Carpinteria actually do care about homelessness. So I appreciate that. I also appreciate that we do have volunteers that are trying to help people as individuals, because they are all individuals, and I agree they need to be treated with dignity. And like, for instance, they help them get their laundry done on on Linden Avenue. The laundry facility will help them for free wash their clothes 1 day a week. And they also give them free clothing and stuff like that. So I appreciate that it's being done on a volunteer basis by individuals in this city, and it is not costing us anything in the way of city funds for them to help them. So we need to encourage those people, and we can donate our money to them. It's better to donate our money to these organizations, these individuals that are helping, that are considering getting a 501c together. And so I encourage that, and I agree. Giving them money, would be better than giving it to the homeless. It would be better to give them socks, like you said, or food. So I agree with that. So if you're interested in helping this group, talk to me later. And I will put you in touch with them. Let's see, what else do we want to say? I want to also just thank you, because we're wrapping up. I kind of see it's getting a little bit quieter out there, because it's been a long night, and I appreciate all of you coming. So thank you for listening to all of us.
Thank you. Moving on to our closing statements and our closing questions. We're going to give each candidate a closing question. We'll begin with the incumbents. During your time serving on the Carpinteria City Council, what accomplishment are you most proud of? Mr. Stein, we will begin with you.
Wow. 28 years worth. Just trying to think. the bluffs, preserving the bluffs from a huge development that would have divided the community in half. Not allowing a redevelopment agency to go into the downtown and beach area because that's the way you're going to balance your budget and redevelop instead of remodel or reuse our downtown and beach area. That was big. That was the early, excuse me, early 90s. Balancing our budget. We were told when I was elected in 1990, Donna Jordan, Mike Ledbetter, and myself, by Alan Coates, we are $350,000 in the hole, which would equate to $750,000 today. The only way you will balance your budget is if you approve this Bluffs project. And that, we just saw things a different way. It's not going to happen. So we reorganized the city, got a new city manager, started transparency. We changed the way the budget was performed and brought to the public. And Dar mentioned how transparent and easy it is to read. That was our goal. City Hall opened at 10 o'clock and closed at 3, banker's hours. We opened at 8 and 5. We said, this is the public. We started televising our council meetings. That was unheard of in Carpinteria. I mean, as a builder, and Gregg would know, we go to the lumber yard in the morning, Monday after the council meeting, and I'd be there 4 hours explaining what we did. After we started televising, they were like, we watched you last night. We don't need to talk to you anymore, which that was fine. So making City Hall more accessible, more transparent, balancing the budget, going from $350,000 deficit to about an $8 million reserve over 28 years, and never raising fees, taxes, or assessments. So that was pretty good. We just put the money away when we had it for a rainy day, and now we're ahead. So that was big. Improving our parks, allowing, helping. One thing we do have is $1 million in the reserve that the interest goes right to youth programs and helps Little League, AYSO, everything that the youth use for sporting here in the community. I'm a firm believer that kids need structure, whether it's cheer squad, Bonnie Curtis Dance Studio, Little League, YFL football, Boys and Girls Club. All those are important for the youth growing up today. I will say I was the last roller hockey coach Carpinteria saw at Thunderbolt too. One of my sons played roller hockey. Working with the schools. Gregg, Carty, and I are on the subcommittee working with the schools, figuring out joint uses. I've just been proud to serve this community for 28 years. I've been accessible. My kids would always joke, Dad went for milk. He's back 2 hours later because you talk to everybody in the store about different things going on. So accessibility. I was probably one of the first council members to put my phone number in the voter pamphlet. You got a question, call me. I've always been a family man. I'm always in it 110%. No matter what I do, it's 110%. I've coached Little League, YFL. I was on the Little League board for 11 years. 2 years after my youngest son graduated from Little League, went on to high school. Helped with YFL, coaching both my older two boys. I had a real successful construction business that I gave up. I had two companies, one in LA, one up here. LA, commercial, tenant improvement in high-rise office buildings. Up here, commercial and residential. But when Eric was born, I was out of town the first 6 months of his life, and I decided, can't do it. I want to raise a family, give everything I can to that. I was newly elected, give everything to that, so I gave up the building business. I was working nights at the railroad and garden spots, East LA, South Central LA, wherever railroads are. but did that at night, construction during the day, but I was always home for my family during the day and the evening till they went to bed. And I always found time to help coach, volunteer. I'm proud of that. And serving this community has been really a jewel to me. And I want to thank you all for putting up with me and my idiosyncrasies over the last 28 years. I've really loved this community. And if you want a good deal, you'll see me. I thought, man, maybe I should wear a tie and a jacket. And I thought, no, I wear this. I get this from Carpinteria High. The best, Coach Cooney, the best baseball coach. You guys should come out, watch a baseball game, get a hot dog, and a shirt for $10. I've got a whole array of colors. But our local schools are fantastic. And I wear this on the airplane. We'd watch Friday Night Football, get the red eye at LAX and either fly to Annapolis or fly to Des Moines to watch Eric or Jeremy play Saturday afternoon, then fly back Sunday, just so we wouldn't miss them. And I'd wear these shirts and everyone's like, yeah, go Cubs, or Cincinnati. The hardest one was I'd land in O'Hare because Jeremy played in Des Moines, so you got to go to O'Hare. I'm like, no, this is Carpinteria. You guys stole it from us, and I'd have to explain Carp.
Thank you, Mr. Stein.
Thank you. Anyway, thanks for coming out tonight, you guys.
Mr. Clark.
Thank you. What was the question? What are your favorite accomplishments? Or something like that?
I will reread it.
He spoke so
During
long,
your time,
Sorry.
during your time serving on the Carpinteria City Council, what accomplishment are you most proud of?
Okay, thank you. The accomplishment that I'm most proud of is in keeping this little town small, clean, and friendly, attractive to tourists and residents alike. We haven't gone crazy with overdevelopment. We've managed to balance the budget without resorting to dirty industry, used car lots, and big box stores. And I think a lot of people here are part of that. We all contribute to keeping this town small and special. I have a philosophy of how we do this, or at least it's what I apply. I think there's three elements that make Carpinteria a successful small town. One is this beautiful place that we happen to find ourselves in. The environment is incredible. The mountains and the ocean. It's just an incredible place to live in. And secondly is that it's our small local businesses. That's part of the downtown. It's part of the social fabric. You meet your friends down there, and it's really a nice, neat little place. Everything's in walking distance. And then it's the community of people. The people in Carpinteria are really, really good volunteers, and they help each other out, and they help make this a better place. And to the extent that we can foster that, I think we will keep Carpinteria. Some other things I've done is I spearheaded this big box ordinance that we did to protect small business. I'm very happy that I've taken the lead in banning plastics, keeping the environment clean of plastics, and we started that in, I believe, around 2007, and it's took a long time. We were able to ban some parts of styrofoam right away. Later, it was disposable plastic bags. That was the big one, and there's some other things that we're continuing with, and so I'm very happy that we can do that. And I guess mostly it's just we still have a really nice place to live in 30 years later. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Mr. Carty.
All right. Some of my most treasured accomplishments are preserving and knowing what we have and keeping it the way a small town. Things have changed, but some things have gotten better. We have over 100 acres of parks and facilities. that for all of us to enjoy, for our visitors to enjoy. And we have some of the nicest parks in the whole county, I think, in the whole state, put it that way. Environmental issues are a big one. Smoking ban. Do you remember when people used to smoke in restaurants? Carpinteria was one of the first cities around to ban smoking. And the children led the charge. That's pretty cool. And then environmental issues have to be near the top. I was mayor my first term in a very difficult time. That was the Paradon error. And let me tell you, it was tough. It was, and the whole council, we listened to the community, and I think the community was a winner in this case. I'm proud of that. Just keeping things and unique that we attract the right kind of people to come visit our community. We attract the right kind of people to come move here. Some of the people that have moved here more recently, some of them care about it more than ones that have lived here their whole life, because they know they've come from a place that has been ruined. And they talk about how it used to be. In Carpinteria, we can still talk about how it is. I mean, it's an incredible place. And we have a treasure here. This theater, this is 1928. This is older than the Arlington Theater. Support it. I mean, to not have a theater like this, I mean, there's the city encouraged the theater group. So I'm in a way, I'm proud of that. And I got to be a part of turning it into a real theater. There's a full stage theater. Come to town, go to a movie, go to a play, go out to dinner, shop local. I'm a small business owner. I meant to mention that when we were talking about small business. I have been since the mid-'70s. I try to buy everything local and support local. It's important. And I started to say when we were talking about small businesses, they can play their part too. Go out and dust off the windowsills, clean the windows. I'm not saying they aren't, but just little things. Maybe paint your business every few years or every year or whatever it takes just to make it look good. The city does a good job of keeping the downtown up. The benches are refinished from time to time, and our downtown looks great, I think. Is there room for improvement? Yes. But overall, we are a lucky group of people to live in Carpinteria. And I understand that being a city councilman is not a one-man or woman show. It takes hard work, patience, commitment, fairness, respect for differences, and willingness to collaborate with your fellow council members on many issues and projects. I have demonstrated the vision, leadership skills, motivation, attention to detail, and experience necessary to be a productive member of the Carpinteria City Council. I would like to thank our wonderful community for your cooperation and support, and look forward to the opportunity to serve as your council member. And I'd like to apologize for my stumble early on when I couldn't find my notes and I was trying to figure out what to say about small business. I think the city could do a better job of supporting our small businesses in Carpinteria. I think businesses, owners need to get together as a whole group rather than just knowing one or two of the other businesses. I think that possibly a subcommittee that met every 3 months of small business owners and maybe 2 members of the council, and just create it like a workshop. What are their concerns? What do they don't like? What do they like? What would they like to change? I don't know how often all the business owners get together. As I've walked downtown, and some of them will say, yeah, I'm friends with that business owner and that one, but I don't know those other ones. It's just a collaboration of all the business owners getting together and expressing their their concerns, and I think the city would address them. In fact, I know they would. It's time for me to stop.
Thank you, Mr. Carty. Moving on to the new candidates. What do you bring areas of expertise to the City Council that is not currently being represented? Mr. Ringling, you may begin.
Again, thank you everybody for showing up tonight. It's been a real pleasure being here tonight. I've really enjoyed it. What do I bring to the City Council? And that's a great question. I'm glad you asked that, because I do bring, as a certified accountant, I will bring a lot of experience that I have in the nonprofit world as a chief financial officer for a number of organizations that had larger budgets and some that are similar budgets to the city. And in the nonprofit world, your mission is to provide the best services you can with the resources that you have. And I've worked for nonprofits that had a lot of money and some that didn't have a lot of money. We had to really stretch our budgets. So I have a lot of experience in working with budgets, as Brad does also, and making those budgets work and stretch the whole way. And I've worked for in the for-profit world also, so I have a good blend of that. And I think that is something, I think you mentioned, what do I bring that might be unique? On the City Council, we have these wonderful individuals that are serving us, and I really appreciate all of them for their public service. But we need, I think I would bring something that is missing, or not missing, but I could enhance. Let me say that. I could enhance that. I would come also with an open mind, and I want to hear from the community so I can serve the community the very best that I can. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Lee.
I'll be someone for the small businesses. I have a young family, and one of my goals is to invest into the youth. They're the future, and we have to give them tools and resources to succeed. And that's a priority of mine. I can sit here and talk about what I want to do, or I can do it. And the two things that I'll focus on is the skate park and the dog park first. Once we get those done, we can focus on other issues. But that's what I'll bring. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lee. Let's give all of the candidates a round of applause. It's not easy coming out and answering questions that you're not expecting and questions that are not given beforehand. So great job. And then the lights are kind of blaring on them. So they did a fantastic job this evening. We're very lucky in our city of Carpinteria, like everyone was saying tonight. Most of the candidates will be available afterwards in the lobby for a meet and greet and to answer any additional questions that you may have. I want to thank you so much for joining us this evening, and have a wonderful night.